We are nearing Clemson's season opener against Duke, and we're starting to preview the team and the season that's upcoming. In this video, we're going to focus on the defense. So last year, the defense was solid. It was good, but it wasn't best as the standard kind of elite defense that we've really come to expect. Going back to 2018, they finished second, 2019 fourth, 2020 15th, 2021 fourth in yards per play allowed. 2022, they dropped to 25th, giving up 5 yards per play, almost a full yard behind their super elite defense they had in 2018 that only allowed 4.1 yards per play. So definitely a step back and not one of Clemson's better defenses, although a lot of teams would envy to have a top 25 defense. They were also in the 20s in some other stats, including points per play allowed, points per game allowed. They ranked in the 20s there, and they were much worse passing, stopping the pass than stopping the rush. So thinking about what's got to get better, it's the secondary. The secondary was bad, and we'll start from the back and kind of move forward. So Andrew Mukuba was expected to be one of the better players. He was great as a freshman, posted a PFF grade well into the 70s. He was, quite frankly, terrible last year. He was hurt. He played through the injury, and maybe he shouldn't have because he struggled a lot. They also moved him around to different spots in the secondary, and so that was a hole for Clemson. They also were thin at cornerback because Nate Wiggins early in the season hadn't emerged. Sheridan Jones missed 4 games with injuries. Toriano Pride and Jalen Lucas were true freshmen, not really ready for to be thrust into a big role. And of course, the Wake Forest game where Sam Hartman threw for 6 touchdowns is when that really came to a head. As the year went on, Nate Wiggins really emerged and became a number 1 cornerback. So he's back for his junior year, possibly his last year before he goes to the NFL. So he kind of gives Clemson that number 1 legit NFL kind of cornerback that they're used to having. Sheridan Jones is using his COVID waiver. He's coming back for an extra season. He's a veteran number 2 guy looking for kind of that Mario Goodrich strong finale that sends him off to the NFL. Of course, Goodrich had the big Cheez-It Bowl and got drafted by the Eagles. So cornerback is looking much better. Toriano Pride and Jalen Lucas both back now with some experience. And then there's a couple guys behind them, but really those 4 are the guys at cornerback who expect to lock it down. And then at safety, Mukuba is now healthy. And that makes a huge difference. R.J. Mickens, for my money, is the most underrated player on the team. And he has been for a couple of years now. He's got 5 interceptions the last 2 years. Great player. He's got to get snaps. And then Jalen Phillips, another guy using his COVID year to return, a steady, reliable veteran, led the group in snaps last year. Good, solid player. Mickens was the best safety on the team last year. And depending on how much other guys improve and how that changed, he might be the best safety again this year. I really like Mickens. And that trio of safeties is going to see the field plenty. Moving forward at linebacker, I think the trio of linebackers could be the best in the ACC and maybe the country. Wade Woodaz is the Sam linebacker. He started off on special teams as a true freshman last year. Trenton Simpson was, when he got hurt, Barrett Carter was the Sam. Barrett Carter moved over to the weak side will linebacker. Wade Woodaz got a chance to play at Sam and filled that role beautifully. And so he'll just kind of continue that this season. And then, like I said, Barrett Carter's the weak side linebacker. Once he moved over, he was already very good, but he became really, really elite. And then Jeremiah Trotter, at least last year per PFF, was the best player on the team. I don't know if NFL scouts will kind of drool over him the way they do kind of physical specimens like Brzee and Murphy, but he was already more productive than they were. Obviously different position, but nonetheless, he is arguably the best player on the team, Jeremiah Trotter. So that is a great trio of starters. Behind them, you got Kobe McLeod, you got D. Creighton, Jamal Anderson can play that strong side. Those are guys, freshman, redshirt freshman. With TJ Dudley, who's another young guy, he's been dismissed from the team. He transferred to Ole Miss. Not a ton of depth. I think what you could see is freshman safety Khalil Barnes and maybe one of those other 3 safeties like Mickens move down, play almost like a third safety, box safety, almost like the Sam linebacker kind of role to get your best players on the field. So linebacker's thin, but I think the depth at safety could help that. Now, Tyler Venables is out for the season. He was banged up at times last year. He had the lowest PFF grade of any safety on the team. He struggled. So he's going to be out all year in just redshirt, which I think is the best thing for him and for the team because Clemson very well could lose their 3 top safeties with Makuba as a junior, could have a great season, go off to the NFL. Mickens is a senior. Of course, he could use a COVID year, but I don't think you count on that. Jalen Phillips is using his COVID year. So if they all play great, they're probably all gone. So Tyler Venables coming back next year instead of graduating, I think is a blessing in disguise and could give Clemson some veteran presence there next year. I mean, they'll have Khalil Barnes, they'll have Sherrod Coble, but it's good to have a veteran there. So I think safety is in good shape without him this year and will benefit from his redshirt next year. And then we move up to the defensive line. And this is where it's really interesting. So defensive end, they lost KJ Henry and Miles Murphy. Murphy, of course, a first rounder. KJ Henry goes later to the Washington Commanders. I think they're going to miss KJ every bit as much, maybe more, for his leadership, but his production was great. He had the highest PFF grade of any defensive lineman on Clemson. And that's those are your 2 starting defensive ends they have to replace. They're turning to Xavier Thomas, who I think has a chance to be a superstar, but he's played like 19 games in the past, I think it's 2 seasons. So he's just got to stay healthy. He's a great pass rusher. I think he'll be okay against the run, but a really plus pass rusher if he can stay healthy. He's a 6th-year player, so this is it for him. The other end is another 6th-year player, Justin Maskell, out of Snellville, went to Brookwood High School, actually the rival of where my sister went to high school. So Atlanta suburbs, big-time recruit, and he hasn't been hurt. He's been okay at best. He hasn't had a sack in 2 years. So a lot of people are saying this is the year he's going to have that Kevin Dodd, or really you could even say KJ Henry kind of last year breakout. We just haven't seen it yet. So maybe that's the case, but maybe not, right? Cornell Powell did it, but there's a lot of players who are highly rated and just don't work out. We'll see. He's going to get his chance. I think the depth at defensive tackle makes this less of a concern. You got those 2 guys at defensive end. You got Cade Denhoff, who redshirt sophomore. I think I actually want to bet on him having a good year. I believe in him. He was a really big recruit. Hear good things in the spring. After those 3, I don't know how much else you have that's ready right now to contribute in a meaningful way defensive end. So I think what's going to happen is some of these defensive tackles are going to have to shift over. So let's see who we got. Tyler Davis and Rukaroro both chose to come back. That's a big boost. But there were other guys who perhaps were ready. You have DeMonte Capehart, you have Peyton Page, you have Trey Williams. All 3 of those guys, all 3 of those guys deserve to play. And then I think Peter Woods is too good not to play. So you can't go 6 deep for the 2 starting defensive tackle spots. I think you got to move someone to defensive end for depth, and because it might just be how you get the best 4 players on the field at the defensive line, even if one's playing out of position. I don't love people playing out of position. I always say that on the offensive line, but I think the difference between having Woods on the field at defensive end versus not at all might be pretty big. And I think Peter Woods is probably going to move over. He said he can do it. He said he enjoys it and kind of like takes pride in his versatility. Feels a little crazy to not have him on the field. So I would expect that. And I think that solves your problem at defensive end. So I guess that leads us to the final question is coaching, right? Wes Goodwin in his 2nd year, first year they took a step back. I felt like he was a little slow to make in-game adjustments throughout the year, but especially early, and especially in that Wake Forest game where he just seemed like he refused to come out of man defense. But as the year went on, I don't think you saw that as much. I think there were still problems, but I don't know if there was much coaching problems. The players on the team love him. High school recruits love him. He's landing great recruits. So I think there's good reason to have confidence. And what's kind of interesting, he and Dabo all but admitted there was a learning curve. And it's a big difference having a year of experience, calling the plays and being the guy. I think Wes Goodwin is a great football mind. I think he gets it done. I think Clemson is back to being a top 5 defense in most of the metrics. I think they take a big step forward. And the one thing they need is the offense to not hang them out to dry. If they can get that, if the offense can be decent, watch out for this defense to just really dominate some of these teams in the ACC. I'll be back with some more previews. We'll preview the offense. I'll have more guests on. In the meantime, please subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate it. I'm trying to grow this before the season gets going. And so I'd appreciate it if you'd follow. If you're already following, please give this video a like, helps it out, get some more views. So, hey, thanks for watching and thanks for subscribing.